Hello, I'm Adincer. Let's take a look at the Enhancement Shaman at max level in the Legion Alpha. So it was really hard to get footage for this spec because it's really weak at the moment. I got one shot in most arenas and BGs are unavailable. But of course you can expect stuff like that in any alpha, so seeing how imbalanced it is, I can only talk about the direction in which they are taking this spec and how it feels playing it now. Well, the fact that all the three shaman specs have retained their spells in the calling during Warlords was a gift and a curse. They were more complicated and harder to play than most other classes just for the sheer number of spells they had, but they were unique because of it, and all three specs had the ability to adapt to any given situation. Now they have the same number of spells as any other class, if not a bit more because of all of the active spells in the talent tree. But how does it fare in PvP? Well, it's a big departure from Warlords. As you know, in mid to late WoD, Enha Shamans were and still are really powerful and one of the top picks. Not for their DPS though, which is decent, but for their survivability and utility. Being able to survive almost anything even without a healer was what made them great, even OP I would say. Now they were a lot more tanky than even plate wearers, and that's just not cool. Anyway, now they can't survive a burst from any two classes in 2v2s. When against a single opponent they do well, of course not against Demon Hunters and Rogues. For survivability we have Healing Surge and Astral Shift, which is the same as Shamanistic Rage but with a longer cooldown. Now the balancing is way off. Healing Surge is only a third of a heal from other DPS, and Astral Shift is on a bigger cooldown than defensives from other DPS. Where it shines though is its sustain and burst damage. It helps a lot that all the DPS abilities have a 10-yard range and are not melee, so hunters and the rest of the range have a harder time kiting. So the sustained DPS is in a way similar to Warlords, just that you have a resource now, so you have to keep that in mind, and it works as you would expect. A couple of abilities generate it and other more powerful ones spend it. What is weird though is that all of the passive buffs you get from those abilities. These kind of passives have largely been removed from the game over the years, and they reappear on this spec. From a couple of hours I played, I did get a bit annoyed, mostly because of how all those buffs affect the burst phase. So in order to burst, you have to activate 8 abilities. That's right, 8 abilities. Starting with Flame Tongue, then Frostband, Crash Lightning, Feral Spirit, Sky Fury Totem, then the Artifact spell, Lava Lash, and to finish it off, Ascendance. And even Bloodlust and Windsong if you choose them in the talents. So 10 spells that you have to pop before starting to burst. Every one of those abilities that are not pure cooldowns give buffs, so for an optimal burst phase you have to use them all, and that is just insane. I didn't get much chance to do so since, as I said, it's terribly imbalanced and I don't last long in any fight. But when I did pop everything, the enemies just melt. And I'm not convinced on how this spec is playing out. Like, you always have to keep the buffs up to do good DPS. Some last 10 seconds, some 15 and some 20 seconds. It gives you something to do, sure, but after a while it becomes a chore and a drag to not slip up. Of course, this is a bigger deal for PvE, where the constant best DPS matters, but what matters most for PvP is the burst phase. Now, even if you don't use half of the spells at your disposal, and only use the most important ones, you still need to pop 5 or 4 spells, and most share a global cooldown. But outside of all that, I did have fun dueling, where it's a more level playing field than in arenas, And with Feral Lunge, which is a new ability, we have even more maneuverability than before. It's like a Feral Druid's charge in cat form, but you just lunge to the target, not behind it. All in all, it needs more tweaking in terms of spells and the buffs they give. Maybe remove some of them or make them do other things that are not mandatory, that's just a buff to, let's say, speed or healing or stuff like that. This seems too much. And of course it needs much more tweaking in terms of balancing. But it has the potential of being a fun and a viable spec. Hope that happens. Till then, thanks for watching and see ya.